Recently, I had a chance to go to the beach with my wife and enjoy the sun and the waves and the wind, and the storms blew in the next morning, but they blew out just as fast, and so it was really nice. But one of the things I had a chance to do was to go right down to the beach, actually in the water. That was kind of cool. And I took my little GoPro camera in its waterproof case, and I walked out about 5 or 6 feet into the water, and I watched where the waves were returning, and I found a little place and I set my camera down so that I could film the waves coming in and like see them splash against the camera when I went back to watch the video. It was really kind of cool. Well, about 25, 30 feet down the beach for me was a little family, 2 or 3 brothers and sisters all together building a sandcastle. And they would scoop up the sand in their little buckets and stack them on top of each other, and they built quite the little structure. What they didn't realize was there's a certain distance from the water that you got to be, because when the waves come in, not like the rising of the tide, but the ebb and flow of the waves, they don't always stop in the same place. That's what I want to talk about today. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. It dawns on me that there are a lot of people who have built these theoretical, philosophical, political, sometimes even religious structures, moral structures, law structures around, well, basically a sandcastle. And the challenge that many of them have is that they forget that erosion, the rock versus the water, the big giant limestone mountains that are the Rocky Mountains. In the United States, the Sierra Madre Peak is only an hour from my father-in-law's house, and you can see its top elevation from his house. It's pretty impressive to realize that the river that runs through there has been running through there for a long time. And as much as you could take a shower with water, wash your hands with water, wash your face with water, consume water in a path persistently will actually destroy a rock. There are a lot of people who want to build these fancy philosophies and these theories that time after time after time simply get wiped away. They're like cities that have been built and rebuilt in the face of a hurricane season, or cities that have been built and rebuilt in the face of a tornado. I remember when I was right out of high school and in college in Austin, Texas, there was a tornado that, in a very rare occasion, actually traveled south from Texas. It was traveling down I-35 from the north to the south, which is contrary to the way that the jet stream normally moves through Texas. So it was a very unusual storm. But there was a little town, I forget the name of it now, but a little town on I-35 just north of Georgetown that this F5 tornado hit. And literally, they couldn't find the foundations of the houses. They couldn't find the asphalt where the streets used to be. The entire city was gone. Now, I don't know if they've rebuilt it or not, but that tornado, in a matter of hours, undid hundreds of years worth of work. Now, there's two sides to the parallel of this reality. On the one side, we have the idea that something even as solid as the foundation of your house could be wiped out by enough violence and force and a persistent attack. And sometimes that comes as a surprise, like a tornado or a hurricane. And you don't expect it, or even like the floods in the Midwest, where we saw literally houses washed down the road in places that there wasn't a river there. There was just so much rain that it was out of control that it washed away the landscape of hundreds of miles. The landscape of cities and towns were gone. Completely gone, obliterated. But see, the water, it has the power to do that. When you build something with a foundation, you have a better chance of standing. When you build something on the theories of sandcastles, it's going to be wiped away at the first notion. Here's what I want you to remember as a leader. You're going to be on both sides of that. You're going to be expected to build something that will last. That means it's got to be foundational. Don't build your organization, your family, your relationships, your nation on theories that are as flimsy as a sandcastle or a house of cards, because the first gust of wind, or for heaven's sake, a water gun, could destroy it. Can you imagine what you could do to a sandcastle with a super soaker? It wouldn't take long at all to just bring it to nothing. But also remember that as you are on the opposite side of that, and you're seeing people around you build these theories of sandcastles, what you know to be a temporary theory, it's falling within today's societal ebb and flow, and it seems that today it's on the rise that we'll believe like this, we'll say like this, we'll live like this. But we know that that theory has been around before. Fashion is a good example. It was once fashionable to wear bell-bottoms and loud colors and big plaids and paisleys and flowers on everything that you put on. Just look back at the pictures of the Beatles or their concert goers. And sometimes you'll see an ebb and a flow where that same kind of fashion will come back again. The same kind of haircuts will come back again. The mullet, unfortunately, is in style again in some places. And I do say unfortunately because at one time I was pretty close to having one. The ideas that have come to the forefront and then gone away again, often it's because they're flimsy ideas. They weren't the best ideas when they came around the first time, but people sometimes think they should be here. On the other hand, like the waves of the ocean, not just moving with the tide, but the constant ebb and flow of the in and the out, the waves themselves, they have the ability to wash away a city or just to maintain a boundary. And here's what I find. Truth is a lot like those waves. The waves will test you. They'll test your ability to stand. They'll test anything that you build. Think of the breaker walls and the jetties that are built along the coastlines. Those are there to do everything they can to control the waves, to set a boundary, to say to the waves, you can only come this far. But when the tide is up, when the storm comes in, the waves, they don't care about those boundaries. It's almost as if they respect those big rocks to a degree, but at some point, they'll jump out of them if they have to. See, truth is a lot more like those waves. We talk about the solid rock, but enough water over time, and the rock is dust. The rock will become sand. I think the erosion, the waves, the ebb and the flow that sees the seasons, and like the tide comes in and goes out based on the position of the moon and the seasons of the year, so does the wave come in and go out. The water of truth washes us. It cleanses us. It gives us a new lease on life. It gives us the power to bring things to life that hasn't been there, but it also gives us the power to wash away what shouldn't be there. Unfortunately, a lot of truth these days is as littered and cluttered and filled with garbage as our oceans and our lakes and streams. There's so much poured into, left on the shoreline of, dumped to be hidden by, that's just utter garbage dumped into the truth. And it allows the debris to wash ashore as well. If you've walked the coastlines of many of the cities in the United States, you've probably seen garbage, plastic floating up from the ocean that hasn't been cleaned up yet, especially when a storm surge comes. You'll see refuse, actual garbage dumped off of barges and ships in the middle of the ocean, thinking it will just sink to the bottom and never be seen again. No, but it harms the wildlife. See, that kind of garbage seeps into the truth that is the corrosive and erosive power to stand strong. I know you think I'm mixing metaphors here, but I want you to really stop and think about how long and how persistent we've got to be in telling the truth, in holding our ground, even as the storms come, even as the rocks stand against us, even as the sandcastle theories try to build a border around what we know, what we believe, and what we believe should be taught. Those sandcastle theories, they look substantial, but enough persistence by the wave, enough drips and drops of the water of truth, and they'll be gone. Sometimes what we have to do is make sure that the water itself is not filled with garbage. We need to take the time to take out the garbage. We see so many would-be truth tellers these days that maybe the whistleblower on Facebook yesterday. She had all kinds of incredible things to say about her former company, but there's a whole lot of truth about her that many people don't know. A lot of people see her perhaps as a hero, of a certain political party. But when you look back at where she's made donations and where she's actually worked and what job she actually had at Facebook, there seems to be some inconsistencies even in her testimony. Her actual job descriptions compared to what she claims she did. Are they consistent? Or is this more garbage floating in the water that we're hoping to use for the purpose of erosion? See, those are questions that we need to be asking. That person who says, I stand for moral purity, but they don't stand for moral purity in their relationships. They claim that I am the leader in the area of X, Y, and Z, but when you look in their life, there's no evidence that they stand for that. There was an old phrase many years ago that I remember being asked and challenged with, and I'll ask you this now. If you were on trial for being who you say you are, would you be convicted? If you were on trial for being a conservative or for being a leader or for being a Christian or for being an entrepreneur. I heard somebody, one day, a guy handed him their business card and it said CEO. And they said, wow, CEO, how big is your organization? He goes, well, right now it's just me. And they said, so you're the CEO of one? The chief executive officer of self? I mean, that's a disingenuous title to call yourself CEO when there's nobody else in the organization but you. You're a solopreneur. You're an entrepreneur. You're a solo act. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't have to pretend to be something you're not. See, those are the kinds of things that cause the washing of the water by the word, the truth, the washing to fail. When the water's contaminated. When there's too much junk in the water for it to actually do its work. I want to challenge you as leaders. Ask yourself the question, am I delivering water consistently enough? Am I delivering the truth consistently enough? Have I gone back and asked the tough questions of myself? Am I aware of where my failures might be? Am I delivering enough to wash away these sandcastle theories? Am I strong enough, persistent enough, consistent enough in what I say and what I do, that my integrity will stand up behind my actions and my words? If there's a question on that, maybe you need to get a coach and spend some time asking those tough questions, digging into the causes behind the things that you say compared to the moral standing that you have, the things that you say compared to your core beliefs, the things that you say you believe versus the core values you live by. Trust me, in the end, if you want to wash away the sandcastle theories, if you want the truth that you stand on to be revealed to be strong, you're going to have to cleanse what's there. You got to clean the water before you can use it to purify anything else. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.